Good morning, friends. It's a dark and wet Thursday morning, and I'm just sharing a devotion with you. On Tuesday, I was talking about those words that Jesus says, come to me all who are weary, and I will give you rest. And he talked about his yoke being easy. And we talked a little bit about the fact that Jesus wants to pull the weight of life alongside us, and the fact that very much he carries the bigger weight, doesn't he? And he also brings direction in that as well. When I was walking to the house of prayer this morning, I was just pondering and thinking about these things. And then as I approached our building, there's somebody sleeping outside with a sleeping bag under the porch of the church. And that doesn't happen very often because we're not a city centre church. And so I had that kind of dilemma of, right, so I'm going into a house of prayer to pray, and yet there's someone in their sleeping bag outside. Now, I don't know what you would do. I sat in here for a little while. I kind of crept in really quietly. I didn't want to wake the person up. And so I sat in here thinking, right, so I'm on my own this morning. I don't think anyone else was coming for prayer. If there was somebody else here, that wouldn't be a problem, would it? But you kind of risk assess the situation and think, okay, well, I'm on my own. Let's see what I should do. And I just sat here and I said, God, what do you want me to do? And I was just thinking about, when we kind of see people in situations and we think, I wonder how I can help. I wonder what it is that I can do. And we do need to discern God's voice in that. But also, the Bible is really clear that whenever you see somebody that maybe society thinks is the least, or you see somebody in society who society will say, do you know what, that might be a risk, that might be, something that you maybe shouldn't do, because that person, is obviously has chosen the wrong path in life. And we can all be very judgmental, can't we? But actually, Jesus is really clear. He says, when you do it for the least of these, you're doing it for me. So I sat in here and I thought, could I sit in this room and pray and spend time with God if I felt like Jesus was in the sleeping bag outside? Sounds a bit bizarre, but this is how God started to work with me recently, is when you see somebody that is needing your help, imagine if you could see the face of Jesus on that person. Imagine if you thought, actually, if that was Jesus, what would I do? Because in God's word, this is what Jesus says. When you do it for them, you're doing it for me. And so here's a challenge for us, isn't it? Every day, when we see somebody who it might not be somebody who's in physical need, maybe it's somebody who's just emotionally not okay, somebody who psychologically is really struggling, somebody who maybe is making your workplace a really difficult place to be. Just imagine them being Jesus. Just imagine them being the person who you love the most, and think, how can I just bless them today? How can I do something that shows the love of God into their lives? Maybe they just desperately have never known that love. Maybe they've never known an unconditional love. When we work with children who are maybe homeless or, passed from foster home to foster home, it's easy to have care and consideration for them because you think, actually, they're vulnerable. They don't know any better. They are, it's been down to their parents as to why they're in this situation. And we maybe have a bit more compassion for children than we do for adults. And yet, I think we need to look at adults as in, maybe these were children that were never loved. Maybe these were children that were abused and never were able to grow and make the right decisions for themselves. So let's not walk through life kind of looking at that situation saying, what can I do? Can we ask Father? Can we say, what do you want me to do in this situation? How can I help them? How can I bless them? How can I love them into a place where they are even more lovable? So I guess you're wanting to know what I did with the person in the sleeping bag outside. Well, I've put the kettle on. I've raided the food bank a little bit. I went outside and I said, do you want something warm to drink? Do you want something warm to eat? Do you want to come in and get warm? And he didn't look at me. He just kind of put his hood over his face and he said, thank you, darling, but I'm okay. Thank you, though. God bless you. And so I left him and I've shut the door, and now I'm kind of sensing that maybe I could drop something off with him just on my way out so he's got something to eat. But we do need to ask Father, don't we? What do you want me to do in this situation? How do you want me to help? So I pray that's an encouragement to you today, that see people as Jesus. Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me. Whatever you do for the least of society, you do for me. Whatever you do for the least of your workplace, those are who people maybe despise, you're doing for me. You're doing it for Jesus. God bless you. Have a great day.